What is going on YouTube? Gabs here, and today we'll be showing you my personal setup for programming. So from making applications to full-on websites, I will be showing you the tools that I use, how I use them, how I have them configured, and so on. So with no further ado guys, let's check it out. So the first thing that I want to address is my text editor of choice. So it's been a while since I started learning Vim, and while I'm still not 100% Vim wizard, I'm good enough that I'm able to use it as my everyday text editor of choice. So let me actually show you my Vim setup. So let me open up my terminal. So let me just open up Vim, and as you see, this is pretty fancy already. It doesn't look really like your standard Vim. And to be fair, this isn't even standard Vim. This is NeoVim, which is basically the same as Vim by itself. It's a code rewrite of Vim, a sort of refactoring. It's basically a fork of it. And I've been liking most of the features that they've included. And the fixes and the little things that they built into it. So I just switched from Vim to NeoVim, but it's basically the same thing. They even use the same plugins and stuff, so it's practically all the same. So as for my Vim configuration, I have quite a lot to talk about. So let me just open up my Vim configuration here. So it's actually synchronized between all my computers using Git, and I will show you how to get this very configuration for yourself if you like it. Now I don't want to go too deep into my Vim configuration because otherwise this video will be very boring, and I don't even remember half of the stuff that I've done in my Vim configs. So let's just go through it very fast. I'm using Plug as the plugin manager. Airline is this very nice Powerline style interface. The theme is called Vim's Nazi. And I have a bunch of plugins here. This one you see on the left, it's Nerdtree, very popular Vim plugin. And some things for Vala, some things for TypeScript, not very much to be honest, and some other configurations. You can find this whole configuration in GitLab. You'll find the link in the description. So as I said, I've been using Vim as my main editor of choice recently, but most of the things that I'm writing these days are GTK apps. So I've been working on Hydra paper a little bit. I've been doing a refactoring, as well as on a new application I've been working on called UnifiedMin. You can look for it on my GitLab page. Since I've been doing much GTK and GNOME development, I've been also using GNOME Builder a lot. So GNOME Builder is a very interesting young IDE for developing GNOME applications. It's nothing really too fancy. It doesn't even work that well for some things, like splitting is still a little bit doesn't work very well right now, and the Vim bindings are not super great. There are some incompatibilities that I've found, so it's not exactly comfortable to use as of now. But remember, it's still a very young application. It's been around for a couple of years, something like that. But it has some nice features. The most interesting feature that I've been using is that I'm able to actually run my applications as Flatpaks directly from Builder without doing anything else. It actually builds my application source and pulls all the dependencies and runs the whole thing in a Flatpak environment without me having to do anything fancy. And since I've been targeting Flatpak for most of the recent applications that I've been developing, I think this is a very useful feature to have, to be able to test that everything works inside of the Flatpak and to see if the sandboxing is breaking stuff or if it's actually working fine. As far as Builder goes, again, it's a very simple IDE. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. It has an editor. It supports splitting. As I said, it's pretty inconvenient to split. I cannot split like vertically right away. I have to split horizontally and then move one split to the right or to the left. It's not very convenient. And if you start working with for splits and changing files and things, it gets complicated fast and shouldn't really. I really hope it gets better. As of now, it's not really my favorite editor to use. Again, the most interesting thing that I need Builder for is the Flatpak thing, and I've been jumping back and forth between Builder and my personal NeoVim configuration. So there's that. Maybe you want to look into it yourself. Another very interesting tool that I've been using, again for GTK mostly, is DevHelp. So DevHelp is a very simple application that shows you documentation, developer documentation for some of the Linux libraries that you have in your system. So far, I think it's very much tailored towards, again, GNOME development and all that goes around that. So as you see here, we have GTK, GDK, Gobject, GStreamer, and I think there's libhandy in here as well, and GNOME stuff mostly. I'm not sure where it pulls this documentation, but it's offline. I think it comes with the libraries you download, at least on Arch. So DevHelp is really useful because I can just go and search for a quick reference of GTK widget, if I can spell it correctly. And there you have it. This is practically the same thing you get when you use the online GNOME documentation. Links work, you can have multiple tabs. It's again a very simple application, but it's been very useful, especially if I'm on the go and I'm working on something and I need to pull up the documentation, but I don't have an internet connection readily available on my laptop, so I can just use DevHelp since it's all offline. Think of it as a GNOME-oriented man page. Again, for GTK development, one other application that I've been loving really, especially recently since the latest updates, is Glade. So Glade is kind of a WYSIWYG editor for GTK. Not quite, because some things are not as you see them. So WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get, but not everything that you do in Glade is exactly like the same as the application you're building. It's not very easy to explain really, but let's just call it a WYSIWYG editor for GTK. So for instance, if I want to edit, so for instance, this is the settings window for Unified Min, and as you see, it's not actually the window. This is the box that goes inside of the window, and this is its header bar. Let's open up something more interesting, like for instance, wallpaper follows view. This is a component of Hydra Paper, and again, it's a box. As you see here, I have this button. Is it called a button box? I think so. Yeah, it's a button box. And I use Glade mostly to draw the layouts of the applications I'm using, for the most part at least. I've been transitioning from drawing the whole application window to actually drawing single widgets alone, since it's apparently how it's supposed to be done in GTK. So any widget that is self-contained in a way has its own Glade file, which is actually just an XML, but I can just use the generated Glade or XML file and import it in my GTK application using the GTK builder. As for Glade, it's a very easy application to use once you know your way around it. It's not like as easy as it looks actually, because you have to know how GTK works to use Glade, because you actually have to change the same parameters you would change in code, but you're just doing it from this GUI, which is convenient again if you know your way around GTK. Let's now move to the greatest tool in the programmer's toolbox, and I'm talking about the terminal, of course. So the terminal is, of course, if you are a programmer or want to be a programmer, you need to know how to use the terminal. There's no way around it. It's not difficult really, but many people get scared just by looking at an interface that you control by writing commands, which is pretty dumb if you ask me. The terminal is a very interesting, very simple, and very powerful tool for any user actually, and for programmers it's just essential. Let me just explain what I mean. The terminal is the main way you interact with tools like Git. For instance, if I move to my Hydra paper folder, as you see here, I have a custom ZSH configuration, and it shows some Git information here. So if I just let's say I remove copying, it shows that there are unstaged changes. So if I just do git status, it shows that I deleted copying. So if I want to just revert back, I can just do git checkout master copying, and there you go. Everything is back to normal. But this is a very interesting plugin that I've been using for ZSH. Now all of my ZSH configuration can be found on GitLab. It's actually the same repository where I have my NeoVim configuration. So everything is there. It's not really plug and play. So I have my ZSH RC, but you have to install ZSH, oh my ZSH, and power level 10,000, which is the theme that I'm using that shows again this very nice power line that I've grown accustomed to in the recent years. But the terminal is also the tool you use for compiling your software. So if you're writing C code, you just use GCC or CLang, depending on what you're writing and which one you prefer for whatever reason. If you're writing C++, you need to use G++ or CLang++. If you're writing Python and you want to just execute it, you just have to run Python from the console. There's no way around it unless you build a package just to test your application, and that's kind of dumb. And also, I don't know if you can do it without using the terminal at all. So I don't know. And from the terminal, you also use your other tools, your Make or your Mason in my case. Again, taking Hydra paper as an example, I have this nice build there, which is the directory where I build Hydra paper. Or I can just do, okay, let me just remove everything here. I can just do Mason .. So I'm actually initializing Mason in the builder directory, referring to the parent directory, so the project itself. And I can just do Mason configure the prefix blah blah blah, this magic string that basically tells it not to install in the system, but instead install in the test there directory inside this builder directory. Then I can just do ninja install and ninja run, and there you have it. This is Hydra paper built from source. Actually, it wasn't difficult at all. It really depends on what you're doing. Some of the tools are even more important depending on what you're doing. Like for instance, if you're doing web development and you need to use NPM or Yarn, you need to use those from the terminal, and you need to know what you're doing. So let's actually move on and talk about web development. Now, I don't want to show you anything about web development in particular, because most of the things that I've done for web development are private. I've done them for private people, and I don't want to show their code around. Web development, if you ask me, as of now is a plague, because I have no idea how to do it. I know many different ways to do web development. Each and every one of them sucks in its own particular snowflake way. So recently what I've been using for front-end development is Angular. I think Angular 7. Anyway, from 2 onwards they should all be the same. Why I like Angular in particular? Because it's fairly simple to use compared to something like React, and it offers the programmer the same kind of modularity that you can find in desktop applications or traditional applications, or if you want to say it that way, back-end development, because you're not working with HTML documents by themselves, but it's actually working with kind of templates, and those templates are built dynamically on the client using JavaScript or TypeScript to be more exact. Yes, because actually Angular uses TypeScript, which is something I'm not really very fond of, but what can you do about that? So TypeScript is, if you don't know, is actually a superset of JavaScript. I think I used the word superset correctly here. So it's a language that is very similar to JavaScript, and it cannot be executed right away by your browser. At least most browsers don't, I don't think. But it can be transpiled to JavaScript. Transpilation is like compilation. So if you compile a C program into a binary file, you transpile a TypeScript program into a JavaScript file. It's kind of a weird thing, to be honest, but that's how the web industry has been moving. So I don't know. Anyway, you have your TypeScript code and some HTML with some templating in the middle that actually interact with each other and build the page programmatically on the fly using dynamic content. You can actually make some very interesting dynamic websites using just Angular, JavaScript, JSON if you don't have too much data to move around to require a database, and Git actually. What I've done for a couple of websites is I've built those websites as front-end static page only, and all of the changes are done on a desktop computer. So you don't have like an administration panel like on your WordPress or something like that. I usually create some desktop tools like GTK or even command line tools to modify some JSON files or to create some markdown files, and then just push them using Git to the server, which acts as a Git repository in this case, and then just build it again, and it just works. You have a kind of dynamic website without the overhead of having to create and maintain a backend by itself. Speaking of backends, things get even weirder with backend, because I haven't been doing serious backend work for a while now. And traditionally, since I am a Python programmer, I like to use Django. The thing about Django, though, in my opinion, is that I've kind of grown over it in a way. I don't know, it's too mechanic in a way. What I mean is that I think that Django has a very specific way of doing things. If you want to build a website that is compatible, logically speaking, with the way that Django works, then you're probably good to go. But if you want to build a website like in a different way, if you want to shake things up and do things your own way, or do weird things, or more than weird, really things that are not supposed to be done in Django, then you're probably out of luck, and Django gets in the way and it gets very frustrating to use. Many people actually really like Flask, which is another Python-based backend framework. I still haven't had the chance to study and try out Flask, but I think the next time I have to do any serious backend job, I'm looking into that. I've also been using Node.js and the Node Express Mongo stack for backend development. I've actually kind of enjoyed that in a way, because I've built websites as a separate API backend and a completely independent front end, a web front end, of course, that uses the API to actually show the data. So it's a kind of nice and modular approach to web development, and it's one that I really like. But what I've noticed is that it's very time consuming and very error prone. Anytime you're working with APIs, either you make the APIs or you're working with someone else's, things get more difficult. You have to take into account some things that you shouldn't be thinking about if you're just doing a classic traditional website. It's an interesting concept, but I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about it. As for web development, there aren't really many fancy tools that I use. When I'm writing code, I'm mostly using Vim, again, it's my editor of choice, and especially for writing JavaScript and HTML, weirdly, Vim has proven to be very good. So guys, I think that's pretty much it. These are the tools that I use for programming, web development, and so on. So guys, this is gonna wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to press the thumbs up button down there, and also remember to subscribe to my channel if you want more of these. Also remember to check out the TechPills website at techpills.technology, as well as the awesome TechPills community at techpills.technology/community. So guys, again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.